has stated that trade talks between India and the U.S. were positive, with both sides agreeing to step up efforts for the early conclusion of a mutually beneficial trade agreement. Now, the U.S. echoed the sentiment, with a spokesperson describing the meeting as positive as well. Where do the talks go from here? We will discuss that on the show today.
Also on World DNA, from West Asia, thousands of families are attempting to flee Gaza city as the Israeli military confirms that it has begun ground operations, which Prime Minister Netanyahu described as Hamas' last major stronghold. We'll bring you this and a lot more lined up for you right here on the show. Let's start with that.
U.S. President Donald Trump calls PM Modi to wish him on his 75th birthday and applauds his efforts towards peace in Ukraine. PM Modi expresses gratitude and reaffirms his commitment to advancing India-U.S. trade relations.
Trump arrives in Britain for an unprecedented second state visit, receiving a royal red carpet welcome from the UK government as both nations prepare to finalize key investment deals.
Protesters project images of Donald Trump and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein onto Windsor Castle in England, where the U.S. president is said to be hosted by King Charles. 4 people arrested.
Netanyahu defends last week's strike on Hamas officials in Qatar, calling it justified due to Qatar's support for the group. Hamas accuses the Gulf state of funding, harboring and backing Hamas.
Tyler Robinson, the suspect in the killing of Charlie Kirk, appeared in court charged with the conservative activist's murder, as prosecutors say they are seeking death penalty for a crime that has shaken the United States.
Putin visits Zapad 2025 military drills on the last day of joint exercises with Belarus, says drills aim to ensure sovereignty and territorial integrity of Union states, referring to Russian and Belarusian alliance.
Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro rushed to hospital after falling ill while under house arrest. His son described the situation as critical, saying the former president experienced severe hiccups, vomiting, and low blood pressure.
Cloudburst hits Maharashtra's Jalgaon district, affecting 10 villages. At least 1 death reported as 452 houses remain inundated and 2,500 hectares of land suffer damage. Relief efforts are underway.
Wall Street closed lower on Tuesday in choppy trading as investors eyed a likely Fed rate cut. Meanwhile, Trump renewed his push to cut corporate earnings reports to twice a year, with the SEC now backing the move.
Real Madrid maintain their perfect start to the season. Forward Kylian Mbappe scores 2 penalties as 10-man Real Madrid battle to victory over Marseille in their Champions League opener.
U.S. President Donald Trump dialed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to greet him on his 75th birthday.
Of course, this was a significant gesture seen as part of Washington's efforts to reset ties with New Delhi. Following the call, Prime Minister Modi also thanked Trump. He did it on social media. Modi referred to Trump as his friend for his greetings and said he, like the US leader, is fully committed to taking the India-US comprehensive and global partnership to new heights. Trump also posted about the call on his Truth social network and lauded Prime Minister Modi for doing what he called a tremendous job. He thanked the Indian Prime Minister for his support on ending the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Now, the exchange came on the day negotiating teams from the US and India held discussions in New Delhi. A team of officials from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, led by Chief Negotiator for the India-U.S. bilateral agreement negotiations, Brendan Lynch, held a meeting with Jaish, the Chief Negotiator on the Indian side, and his team. Now, the meeting lasted for about 7 hours.
Following the talks, India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry said that India and the US have decided to ramp up efforts to arrive at a trade deal, acknowledging the importance of bilateral trade between the two nations. It said that the discussions were forward-looking, covering various aspects of the trade deal.
In a separate statement earlier, a U.S. Embassy spokesperson said that Lynch had a positive meeting in Delhi with Agrawal to discuss next steps in bilateral trade negotiations.
India and US have earlier held 5 rounds of negotiations for a trade deal. The proposed last round of talks with US in August was postponed in the backdrop of rising tensions between the two countries, following US imposition of 50% tariff on India. Trump announced 25% tariffs on Indian goods in the month of July, even as there were hopes of an interim India-US trade deal that would have otherwise helped avoid elevated tariffs.
A few days later, he imposed another 25% tariff, taking the total to 50%, citing India's continued imports of Russian oil. The 50% tariffs came into effect on August 27th.
Now, Tuesday's meeting was not an official round of negotiations, but a meeting to discuss how to take the talks forward. Reports say the chief negotiators of both countries have decided to continue the trade talks on virtual mode.
All right, to discuss more, we are now being joined live by Raymond E. Vickery. He is a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Trade Development and Senior Associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. It's good to see you.
Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, the talks have been hailed positive by both India and U.S. According to you, how do you see it? Do we actually see a breakthrough, or is it still quite early?
Well, I think that any progress in regard to the talks is to be hailed, but this should not obscure the reality. You know, in order to build peace and prosperity throughout the world, you need a strategy and you need partners. Unfortunately, President Trump has no strategy. What he does is look at everything as sort of a real estate transaction in which there are winners and losers, and he wants to come out as a winner and be hailed as such. That having been said, it's very important that the partnership between the United States and India be one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the world. These are the two largest democracies. We have values in common, and we have economic needs in common. So hopefully President Trump has seen the light in regard to the importance of this relationship. However, I wouldn't put too much stock in the fact that there has been progress, because this whole scheme of taking a sledgehammer, namely tariffs, to solve any problem, whether it be trade deficits or whether it be the war in Ukraine and Russia, is without foundation. And we hope that we can get back to a semblance of a multilateral trade approach, which has served India and the United States so well.
Understood.
What is secured here is that basically this approach destroys the World Trade Organization and the multilateral system which has been in effect since World War II.
Yeah, Mr. Vikri, you mentioned trade, and let me just come to that. The round of talks, the discussions which took place yesterday, it went on for 7 hours. And it was clear from the beginning that this is not an official round of talks, but of course, a continuation of discussions after a fairly significant pause. How do you see that development? And they've decided to continue these discussions. When do you feel an official round could take place of the talk so that it finally reaches some conclusion? There is enough will from both sides now.
Well, let's be plain about it. India and the United States at a working level have been close to a trade agreement many, many times. In Trump 1.0, the first administration, we almost had a free trade agreement, which at the last minute Trump did not feel was in his interest. The parties earlier this year had come very close, but there were demands which India could not bow to in regard to dairy, in regard to agriculture. And Trump had some sort of idea that he could bludgeon India with a further tariff and therefore win the Nobel Peace Prize by solving Russia's invasion of Ukraine. None of this has come to pass, and it will not come to pass just simply using a tariff. That having been said, yes, it is good that the sides are talking. At the very first, when Trump came into power, we were going to solve this in the fall. But unfortunately, President Trump jumped ahead and felt that he could burnish his own image by doing something earlier. Now we're returning to the original approach.
You mentioned agriculture and aversion. Of course, these are the red lines that have been drawn both by U.S. and, of course, India. Do you think that what kind of method would it take for the talks to be successful, keeping these red lines in check?
Well, there are many, many ways in which to do that. There's already been, in the agricultural area, some progress around the edges, if you will, whether it be almonds, mangoes, things which do not go to the heart of sustaining the millions of subsistence farmers who just can't be thrown on the mercies of the international market. So I think, yes, there can be. And I think that the Modi administration, the Modi government has recognized needs for agricultural reform. But they also realize that it has to be done in a reasonable sort of way. So these are not insurmountable problems. None of these are. But the problem is if President Trump takes the view that he has to come out being the winner in some sort of a transaction, rather than saying this is a part of the overall relationship between the two greatest democracies in the world.
Mr. Vikri, thanks so much for joining us and sharing all your insights. Of course, there is enough will. Pleasantries are being exchanged once again. It all seems like green signals. Let's hope that this reaches where it can. That was Raymond Vikri joining us.
Thank you.
US President Donald Trump arrived in Britain for an unprecedented second state visit, with the UK government rolling out a royal red carpet welcome to win him over.
Well, in a sign of the pomp and pageantry to come, a guard of honor greeted Trump and First Lady Melania as they stepped off Air Force One at Stansted Airport near London.
Then Trump and Melania arrived at London's Winfield House, the residence of the US ambassador to the United Kingdom, where he will spend the night. Trump told reporters that he loved the UK.
Hello, everybody. We just had a great flight. And, our fantastic ambassador, we appreciate the job he's doing. We'd like to go really well, really well. The relationships were great, and he's been outstanding. So I want to thank him and for welcoming us. We had a good flight. A lot of people came with us. And tomorrow is going to be a very big day, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. President, it's going to be a historic day. So it's going to be great.
Well, Trump then expressed his admiration for the British monarch. Listen to this.
To the case. Well, we're going to see him tomorrow, and he's been a friend of mine for a long time, and everybody respects him, and they love him. Thank you very much.
Now, Donald Trump is the first US president to be invited for 2 state visits to the UK after previously being hosted by Queen Elizabeth II during his during his last term in office in 2019. King Charles III will now host Trump at Windsor Castle for a lavish banquet and carriage ride before the US president meets Prime Minister Keir Starmer at his country residence on Thursday.
Now, the British public will be kept far away from Trump, with the visit taking place entirely behind closed doors and heavy security. A large anti-Trump demonstration has been called in London. People protested outside Windsor Castle ahead of Trump's visit.
Late on Tuesday, protesters projected images of Trump and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This was projected onto the towers of the Windsor Castle. The shots shown shortly before Trump's arrival in Britain included newspaper headlines and footage of the two men dancing together. The local police said 4 people had been arrested following the stunt in Windsor.
Now, Trump's visit has been timed to line up with announcements of several investments in Britain, the latest being a pledge by Microsoft to spend $30 billion over 4 years. Downing Street has said Trump's visit would see the unbreakable friendship between the countries reach new heights.
How confident are you, sir? Mr. Prime Minister, will you get a backstop with you?
The suspect in the killing of Charlie Kirk appeared in court charged with conservative activists' murder.
The prosecutors say they were seeking the death penalty for their crime. Kirk, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump and the founder of student activism group Turning Point USA, was shot dead last week during an event on Utah University campus. Tyler Robinson is accused of firing a single bullet from a rooftop, fatally hitting Kirk in the neck.
Robinson wore a suicide prevention smock, which is common in high-profile cases, when he appeared in a Utah court to hear the charges levied against him. He spoke only to confirm his name and sat passively as the district judge read out the 7 charges against him. The most serious one was aggravated murder. Others include obstruction of justice and witness tampering, allegedly for ordering his roommate to stay silent on this case. Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray told during an earlier press conference that he was filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. The conference, carried live on cable news channels across the nation, offered the first glimpse into possible motives for the alleged killer.
Now, Gray cited a lengthy text message exchange between Robinson and his roommate, who he was in a romantic relationship with. Gray said that on the day of the murder, Robinson had texted his roommate to say there was a message under his keyboard. The note said, and I'm quoting here, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." In one part of the exchange, the roommate, who was not named, asked Robinson why he had killed Kirk. Gray, in reply, said, "I had enough of this hatred." He then told the roommate to delete the exchange.
357. Could you state your name? Tyler James Robinson.
Now, shifting our focus, the Israeli Defense Forces continue its military offensive in the Gaza Strip.
As a large bomb exploded in the Palestinian territory, a massive yellow flash was seen lighting up the night skies of Gaza following the explosion. The latest bombardment comes after Israel confirmed its latest ground offensive on Tuesday.
The Israeli Defense Forces also released a video footage showing tanks and other military vehicles entering Gaza City. The IDF chief, Eyal Zamir, said that the military operation was significantly expanding in the Gaza City.
Over the past 24 hours, following extensive discussions with the political echelon, the IDF has significantly expanded its operation in Gaza City. We are operating deep in the area, combining ground troops, precision strikes, and high-quality intelligence. Our objective is to enhance the strikes on Hamas until its decisive defeat.
Amidst the ground offensive by the IDF, the Israeli army said that it could take several months to take control of Gaza City.
No matter how long it takes, we will operate in Gaza. The method of operation in Gaza, as we operated in Phase 1 of Gideon's chariots, is orderly and systematic. We will operate until the war goals are achieved. We are not limited by time. We estimate that it will take several months to take control of the city, its centers of gravity, and several more months or even more to cleanse the city, whose infrastructure is deep and well established.
Meanwhile, a mother of an Israeli hostage has claimed that Hamas is using the captives as human shields by moving them above the ground. Further, Israel's public broadcaster has also claimed that the Palestinian militant group has moved the hostages to tents and homes above the ground in a bid to foil the IDF from operating in those areas.
Following the IDF's ground offensive, thousands of Palestinians fled in vehicles strapped with mattresses and other belongings, clogging a coastal road.
We have no place to sit. My husband is with me and he is paralyzed, and we do not know where to go. We are sitting on the coastal street and demanding that the Arab countries help the sad and oppressed people.
Amidst all this, several protesters in Israel demanded the release of hostages and an immediate end to the war in Gaza.
In other developments, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that he will be meeting US President Trump after addressing the UN General Assembly. Netanyahu also said that the Israeli Defense Forces are operating on many different fronts.
I am here in the operations room at the Kiryat together with the Defense Minister, the Deputy Chief of Staff, the National Security Advisor and senior IDF commanders. Our forces are operating on many different fronts. A few minutes ago, our pilots struck the port of Hodeidah in Yemen. This is the main supply port of the Houthi terrorist regime.
The Israeli military said that it intercepted a missile from Yemen following air raid sirens in Jerusalem. The IDF claimed that it also struck the Hodeidah port in Yemen.
The Israeli military also released footage of fighter jets taking off to strike the Hodeidah port controlled by the Houthi rebels. And following the Israeli attack on Hamas in Doha, Qatar is speeding up efforts to renew its defense agreement with the United States.
Now, Qatar first signed a defense cooperation pact with the U.S. in June 1992, and the recent events have pushed for an expedited update to this strategic alliance.
As President Trump said in his call to His Highness and reported in the readout, and what Secretary Rubio said today, this attack, of course, expedites the need for renewed strategic defense agreements between us and the U.S. and certainly, but it's not something new per se, but certainly expedites the process.
Qatari Emir Sheikh Al Thani met U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Doha, focusing on boosting strategic ties, especially in defense. Rubio reaffirmed a strong U.S.-Qatar security partnership and praised Qatar's ongoing mediation efforts between Israel and Hamas, emphasizing their shared goal of regional stability.
The United Nations and numerous countries have condemned Israel's recent attack on Qatar, calling it a dangerous escalation and demanding accountability. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk described the strike as a shocking breach of international law during an urgent debate at the UN Human Rights Council.
Israel's strike on negotiators in Doha on the 9th of September was a shocking breach of international law, an assault on regional peace and stability, and a blow against the integrity of mediation and negotiating processes around the world. I urge this Council to reaffirm the central importance of mediation processes and to call for accountability for unlawful killings.
Qatar, alongside Pakistan, the European Union, China and South Africa echoed the strong condemnation in a 3-hour session highlighting widespread outrage over the incident.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister has slammed Qatar for not pressuring Hamas to release the hostages.
It is connected to Hamas. It strengthens Hamas. It harbors Hamas. It funds Hamas. It has much stronger capabilities. They have much stronger leverage, and they decided not to use it. I never thought they were pro-Israeli or even neutral. That's not true. There was an attempt to use them in a limited way, but I never thought of them any differently, and I don't think of them that way today. Our action was entirely justified.
All right, it's now time for a very short break on World DNA. We'll be back with more news and updates. We start with cloudburst that has hit Maharashtra's Jalgaon district, affecting 10 villages. At least one death has been reported, as 452 houses remain inundated and 2,500 hectares of land suffer damage. Relief efforts are underway.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
U.S. President Donald Trump calls PM Modi to wish him on his 75th birthday and applauds his efforts towards peace in Ukraine. PM Modi expresses gratitude and reaffirms his commitment to advancing India-U.S. trade relations.
Hours ahead of US President's arrival in the UK, protesters projected images of Trump and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein onto Windsor Castle in England, where Trump is said to be hosted by King Charles. 4 people have been arrested.
How did they get out?
Russia's defense ministry releases images of Admiral Golovka frigate firing Zircon missile during Zapad 2025 exercise. This missile reportedly hit target 900 kilometers away in Arkhangelsk region.
Netanyahu defends last week's strike on Hamas officials in Qatar, calling it justified due to Qatar's support for the group, accuses the Gulf state of funding, harboring and backing Hamas.
Tyler Robinson, the suspect in the killing of Charlie Kirk, appeared in court charged with the conservative activist murder, as prosecutors say they are seeking death penalty for a crime that has shaken the United States.
Cloudburst hits Maharashtra's Jalgaon district, affecting 10 villages. At least 1 death reported, as 452 houses remain inundated and 2,500 hectares of land suffer damage. Relief efforts are underway.
Wall Street closed lower Tuesday in choppy trading as investors eyed a likely Fed rate cut. Meanwhile, Trump renewed his push to cut corporate earnings reports to twice a year, with the SEC now backing the move.
Kenya's Faith Kipyegon wins an unprecedented 4th World Women's 1500 meters title in Tokyo. The 3-time Olympic champion clocks 3 minutes and 52.15 seconds to add another gold to her incredible medal haul. US President Donald Trump dialed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to greet him on his 75th birthday.
Now, this is a significant gesture seen as part of Washington's efforts to reset ties with New Delhi. Now, following the call, PM Modi thanked Trump, who he referred to as his friend, for his greetings, and he said, like the U.S. leader, he is fully committed to taking the India-U.S. comprehensive and global partnership to new heights.
Trump also posted about the call on his Truth Social network and lauded Prime Minister Modi for doing what he called a tremendous job. He thanked the Indian Prime Minister for his support on ending the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Now, the exchange came on the day negotiating teams from the U.S. and India held discussions in New Delhi. A team of officials from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, led by Chief Negotiator for the India-U.S. Bilateral Agreement negotiations, Brendan Lynch, held a meeting with Jaish, the Chief Negotiator on the Indian side, and his team. The meeting lasted for 7 hours.
Following the talks, India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry said India and the US have decided to ramp up efforts to arrive at a trade deal, acknowledging the importance of bilateral trade between the two nations. It said that the discussions were forward-looking, covering various aspects of the trade deal. In a separate statement earlier, a US Embassy spokesperson said that Lynch had a positive meeting in Delhi with Agarwal to discuss the next steps in the bilateral trade negotiations.
India and U.S. have earlier held 5 rounds of negotiations for a trade deal. The proposed last round of talks with U.S. in August was postponed in the backdrop of rising tensions between the two countries following U.S.'s imposition of 50% tariff on India. Trump announced 25% tariffs on Indian goods in July, even as there were hopes of an interim India-U.S. trade deal that would have otherwise helped avoid elevated tariffs.
A few days later, he imposed another 25% tariff, taking the total on India to 50%, citing India's continued imports of Russian oil. The 50% tariffs came into effect on the 27th of August.
Tuesday's meeting was not an official round of negotiations, but a meeting to discuss how to take the talks forward. Now, reports say the chief negotiators of both the countries have decided to continue the trade talks on virtual mode. To give us more details, our correspondent Susan Thanani sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
India and the United States held nearly 8 hours of positive and forward-looking trade talks in New Delhi on Tuesday, the first since Washington imposed steep tariffs on Indian goods. Both sides agreed to push for an early mutually beneficial agreement with Phase 1 targeted by November. Hours later, President Donald Trump called Prime Minister Modi to wish him a happy 75th birthday. Modi in turn reaffirmed India's commitment to U.S. partnership and voiced support for Trump's peace push in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has admitted that India never agreed to any third-party mediation during Operation Sindoor.
Dar, who is also Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister, told Al Jazeera that while a ceasefire offer had come via the U.S., India later made it clear all issues between the two countries remain bilateral. The rare admission directly undercuts President Trump's claim that he had brokered a ceasefire in the wake of Operation Sindoor.
Ishaq Dar was asked about any ongoing negotiations with India and if there were any third party, if there is any third party involved. He replied that India never agreed to any third party mediation, adding that while Pakistan is open to dialogue with India, New Delhi has not responded.
And that also said that it was U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio who conveyed a ceasefire offer in May, suggesting talks between India and Pakistan at a neutral venue. But in a follow-up meeting with Rubio in Washington, he was informed that India had not agreed to the proposal.
Trump repeatedly claimed and took credit for the truce, but India maintains that there is no third-party involvement and that the ceasefire was reached after Pakistan reached out to India and pleaded for a truce after India's relentless counterstrikes post-Operation Sindoor.
Authorities in Jammu and Kashmir have blocked more than 300 social media accounts in just the last 3 days.
Officials say Pakistan-based handlers exploited protests after MLA Mehraj Malik's arrest in Doda, and this fueled unrest across the region. Thus, this next report brings you all the details.
The crackdown is swift and sweeping. Over 300 social media handles blocked across districts of Jammu and Kashmir. Officials say many accounts spread propaganda to incite protest and destabilize peace. Intelligence inputs confirm Pakistan operators targeted Doda, Kishtwar and Ramban using old videos and provocative content to mislead residents. District IT cells worked overtime, identifying accounts and filing FIRs.
Social media users.
We have observed verified and unverified accounts posting inciting videos. I urge the youth, don't fall into this trap. Anti-national elements want to disturb peace. Don't let them exploit you.
The police says it has shared evidence with the platforms showing how propaganda was used to provoke violence and communal tensions. The administration has warned more accounts will be blocked, more cases will follow. For youth in this sensitive region, the message is clear. Don't be misled, don't be used. The crackdown has just begun. Authorities in Jammu and Kashmir have blocked over 300 social media accounts in the last 3 days. This comes after a report that Pakistan is propagating and trying to incite violence in the region. After that, authorities came into action and blocked over 300 social media accounts on various social media platforms. And now the Jammu and Kashmir police has appealed to the youngsters across Jammu and Kashmir that they should not fall into the trap of the enemy. With video journalist Firoz Idris Loan for WION World is One.
A bombshell confession of terrorists. Pakistan's terror facade lies shattered and exposed. A Jaish-e-Mohammed commander has admitted openly that Masood Azhar's entire family was annihilated by Indian forces in Operation Sindoor.
Also exposes the rotting nexus of generals and jihadis in Pakistan. It is an admission that would shame any democracy. But of course, this is Pakistan. Jaish commander Masood Ilyas Kashmiri concedes what Islamabad has long denied, that India's Operation Sindoor ripped apart Bahawalpur, tearing into the family of Masood Azhar, the terror mastermind whose shadow looms over decades of bloodshed. Ilyas Kashmiri says that the family was torn into pieces, a line delivered with grim finality. A line Pakistan's rulers would rather silence, but cannot, because it has come from their own backyard, from a commander of their own nurtured monster.
The Jaish-e-Mohammed commander was addressing Mission Mustafa conference in Balakot in Pakistan, where several other jihadist elements had also gathered. And then comes the bragging and chest thumping. The terrorist commander, flanked by gunmen on a podium, with chilling arrogance, brags of Jaish's role in Delhi, Kabul, Kandahar.
Embracing terrorism, we fought Delhi, Kabul and Kandahar for protecting the borders of this country. After sacrificing everything, on May 7th, Maulana Masood Azhar's family was torn apart by Indian forces in Bahawalpur.
The Jaish commander is claiming that the terror group was defending the borders of this country. Borders, his words, lay bare the truth that Pakistan's military has been shielding and feeding terror while pretending to fight against it. Now, this is not just a slip of tongue, it is a dagger aimed at Rawalpindi's generals. By admitting JEM's losses, by trumpeting its global footprint, the Jaish commander has exposed what the world has long accused Pakistan of running. And of course, that's terror as a statecraft. For the Pakistan army, this is humiliation of the highest order for its democracy. If it can still be called one, it is a disgrace. But once again, this is Pakistan.
Now, it is a confession that Pakistan's narrative is a lie. Here's the terrorist commander admitting his group's losses, praising their cross-border operations. The Jaish terrorist drips contempt at Pakistan's uninformed generals who built this hydra, funded it, nurtured it for decades. The same Pakistani military had rushed to funerals of the terrorists killed in India's Operation Sindoor to show solidarity and keep its terrorist outfit ranks intact.
Pakistan's terror infrastructure lays bare, and this is no rogue cell, it's state sanctioned, with generals shaking hands with mass murderers. While politicians at home try to distance themselves, their own proxies turn accusers, shouting into cameras that the army in Pakistan has failed. The establishment's duplicity is also brought to the fore here, and it is of course a testimony to the fact that Pakistan is behind state terror. Pakistan remains the epicenter of terrorists and outfits. Now, there's no shortage of headlines these days about how much Wall Street loves rate cuts, but markets have been tripping over themselves in search of new records.
Now, this is as sobering news about unemployment piles up that more or less guarantees a rate cut by the Federal Reserve this week. Now, President Trump's increased focus on the central bank may be influencing that calculation. Now, take a look at our next report for more details on this. The U.S. Fed is widely expected to cut rates this week for the first time under Trump 2.0. Despite extreme pressure from the U.S. administration to cut rates, the Fed has broadly ignored those calls. The central bank has been on the sidelines since December last year, but the latest U.S. employment figures have gone from bad to worse. Still, this week's Fed action will be viewed from a different lens, even as the central bank has good reason to cut rates. Trump's criticism of the central bank has included several months of public comments directed at Fed Chair Jerome Powell. The president's firing of Fed Governor Lisa Cook took government intervention to a level not seen before. While an appeals court has blocked Trump's firing of Cook, questions have surged about the central bank's independence. David Kelly, chief global strategist at JP Morgan Asset Management, warns that the expected rate cut this week will actually increase risks for markets. Kelly suggested that might be the case if the Fed action is perceived to be driven by political pressure. The central bank's forecast for the economy will be closely watched to understand the reason for the change in stance now. Wall Street bond and stock investors have been cheering the Fed's expected resumption of the rate cut cycle after a 9-month pause. Bets that Fed easing will keep powering corporate America put the S&P 500 above 6,600 for the first time. The tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 saw its longest advance since 2023 after Google joined the $3 trillion market valuation club. Also aiding sentiment was a framework deal on keeping TikTok running in the U.S., with Trump saying he would talk to China's Xi Jinping Friday. Wall Street has notched fresh highs repeatedly on Fed rate cut bets. However, a $14 trillion record-breaking run in American stocks is heading for an inflection point this week. Analysts say markets could take a cautious stance and look to diversify after the recent rally. Kelly said the Fed's decision this week is seen as a capitulation to political pressure. A new layer of risk is being added to U.S. financial markets and the dollar. Trump added to investor doubts on Fed action on Monday. The president urged the Fed for a big rate cut. So traders will really hang on to the tone of Powell's press conference and the dot plot projections. Will that show weak jobs and a slowing economy as the main reason? Investors will also watch for the Fed's take on inflation from Trump's tariffs. For markets, those projections will reflect in Fed's decision would be driven by economic reality or political pressure. The differing calculus would weigh on markets if there are any questions on the Fed's independence. Business Bureau, WION World is One. Now, the Indian cricket team has a new lead sponsor. Apollo Tyres have outbid other contenders to bag the rights for a whopping $65.7 million US, and that's about 579 crore rupees.
They step in after Dream 11 pulled out following the Indian government's ban on real money gaming platforms under the new legislation. The board's new deal with Apollo Tyres runs until March of 2028, covering about 140 matches across bilateral series, ICC tournaments and Asian Cricket Council events. The Gurugram-based tyre giant saw off challenges from Canva and JK Cements, who had paid $65.3 and $57.2 million respectively. According to reports, the agreement works out to nearly $570,000, and that's somewhere close to 4.77 crore rupees per game, though the amount will vary per fixture. The valuation is significantly higher than the previous deal. Dream 11's contract was worth $44 million. That's somewhere close to 358 crore rupees for 2023-2026 before they withdrew.
Now, India has been playing the ongoing Asia Cup in Dubai without a title sponsor. The first official exposure for Apollo Tyres will be during the two-test home series against the West Indies starting October 2nd, which is followed by an away white ball series in Australia.
And designer Bibhu Mohapatra showcased his Spring 2026 collection at the New York Fashion Week.
The 53-year-old designer drew inspiration from trailblazing women of India, blending heritage with modernity. More on this on our next report.
My roots are everything. That's where that's what I stand on, and it's not only that. That's also I look up to my culture, my people, and I show them to my people here because I belong everywhere, and I'm just trying to build bridges.
That we call a wrap to World DNA. We'll all signed up on the other side after a short break. And before we go, here is a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. Keep watching WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. the victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One, and this is Speed News. Let's begin. U.S. President Donald Trump called Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to wish him a happy 75th birthday, signaling renewed warmth in Washington-New Delhi ties. PM Modi thanked Trump, calling him a friend, and reaffirmed commitment to deepen the India-U.S. global partnership. The call coincided with a marathon 7-hour trade negotiation in New Delhi between U.S. Trade Representative Brendan Lynch and India's Jaish. Following talks, India's Commerce Ministry said both sides agreed to step up efforts towards a mutually beneficial trade deal, stressing the importance of bilateral trade and signaling progress amid past tensions. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in the UK for a second state visit, greeted with a royal red carpet welcome. A guard of honor welcomed Trump and First Lady Melania as they stepped off Air Force One at a Stansted airport near London. The couple then proceeded to Winfield House, the U.S. ambassador's residence in London, where they will stay overnight. Trump, the first U.S. president to be invited for two state visits, previously met Queen Elizabeth II during his 2019 visit. King Charles will host Trump at Windsor Castle with a lavish banquet and carriage ride before Trump meets Prime Minister Keir Starmer at his country residence.